Hi, everyone. I am Victoria Valdez, a licensed marriage and family therapist in Brentwood. And in honor of Black History Month this February, I am featuring Black local therapists. And today I am so excited to have Miss Jamila Walker, who is a licensed counselor, social worker, CEO, owner, clinical practice director of Nashville Emotional Wellness Counseling. And I'm super excited to have you, Jamila.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, so tell us about yourself.
It's so funny. I interviewed someone last night and I asked her the same question, and she was like, "It's such a hard question. There are a million things that we can say about ourselves. I can say I'm a mom, I'm a partner, I'm a daughter, I'm a granddaughter. I recently began to be a caregiver for my grandmother who's 89. So if y'all hear in the background, forgive her in advance because I don't really have control over her like I want to most days. But I'm
Sure.
therapist. I am, for the last 4 years, an adjunct professor at the University of Tennessee in their graduate school of social work. I'm a group practice owner. I'm a business coach. I do a little bit of everything. I'm a Latin dancer. I Latin
Woo!
y'all. I just started in art. I'll be starting in art class tomorrow. So, yeah, I've been doing this work, this mental health work for about 12 years now. 12, 13 is 2023, so about 13 years now. And I love this work.
That is so awesome. I love hearing just you're kind of like a person of all trades, right? Like you've got so much going on and so much you're doing for the community. Love hearing about you being an instructor. One Latin dance to another. I love Latin dancing. That is my jam.
Yes, yes,
I
likewise.
love it. Do you there's a place, I don't know if you've been out there too, called Plaza Mariachi.
I do go to Plaza Mariachi every now and then on Thursdays. It's not quite my vibe just because, it's just it's a different vibe in Plaza, but I do occasionally go. I like to try to go like when there's a Havana Nights or a salsa soul social, and so a little bit of everything. I'm trying to get back into it more post COVID, but yeah,
Yes.
dancing for a while and I love it.
I need to I have an echo outside in my lobby and somehow it like on its own it's like turned up super loud. And so I was like, oh, so viewers out there, you might have heard some background jazz music that was really loud. I don't know. I turned that down. But yeah, every different vibe, right? But I love you'll have to tell me later about that salsa. Would you call it salsa soul?
Yes.
We'll have to connect on that. I love that. So, Jamelia, tell us about this awesome group practice. I found you on the internet. I checked out your group practice. Super powerful,
Thank you.
exciting stuff. Amazing. Tell me about it.
Yes, I'll say I'm very blessed and fortunate. I have an awesome team. My practice is, as Victoria said, Nashville Emotional Wellness Counseling or New Counseling. We have a location here in Tennessee, and we recently opened up a practice in Georgia. So we'll be launching that later on this year. But we deal with a little bit of everything. We started in 2018 initially to be for as we are by or by and for women of color. And so that's where we started at is just to provide support for women of color. So to help them to identify and stand in their truth, to help them through transitions, to help them to just navigate life in general. And since then, we've kind of emerged or expanded and become more of a place for everyone. And so, we are BIPOC therapists. We are a community of just everyone. Our motto is real people helping real people with real problems. And so we try to just, again, bring in a little bit of everyone.
I love that. I saw that you guys were a powerhouse of BIPOC therapists, and especially specifically if I what I saw on your website, Black therapists. It's such a powerful and amazing to see so many together like that. I lead a Spanish speaking therapist clinician group in the state of Tennessee, and there are very few of us.
That's right.
Uh, yeah, and so it's so nice to see these agencies that have people of color, especially places like yours. So I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me what made you inspired you to be in the field of therapy. And I'd love to hear a little bit about what made you jump into group practice. That's a whole nother like it's a lot of work and it's amazing.
Well, and so, and the why question is kind of similar to the, who are you question. There's so many different things that go into the why. I tell people all the time my why is always emerging. And so my why today may not necessarily be yesterday's why or tomorrow's why. Initially it was like I was trying to figure out what was going on with me. Like if I'm being honest, it was I had this stuff that happened when I was a kid. I couldn't really, explain what had happened. Nobody had explained it to me. There were these things that were happening as a result of these things that happened while I was a kid that I was trying to understand. And just as I matriculated through undergrad, found first Africana studies and then sociology and then psychology and then social work. And so, at the time, my why was I was just trying to figure out what was going on with me. And then later discovered, oh, wait a minute, this stuff that I'm doing for me, like this is good stuff. I think maybe Victoria, this might be able to help somebody else. And so, over the time, my why has just become from, trying to figure out what was going on with me to helping others to now, really trying to change the paradigm as it relates to mental health. I believe that one of the most powerful things that we can do as therapists is to show up as our authentic selves, and so I'm working towards, not only being myself in my practice with my clients, but also training, students and interns and clinicians to do the same thing, and ultimately supporting other business owners who want to show up in the same way.
Yeah, as I was listening to you, I was thinking how you are changing the lives of so many people in so many levels. You know, you have you as a clinician, right?
Yeah.
Then you have you as a business owner and leading intern therapists who you will send out into the world and gift them with your knowledge and how to be authentic. And then just, providing the BIPOC space, right?
Yeah.
Even as a teacher and then as your business coach with other biz people who want to be in group practice, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of giving and changing that you're doing is amazing. It's a
Thank you.
lot,
Thank
yeah.
you.
And I also wanted to highlight, I loved how you said my why. I loved that. Matter of fact, I hope you don't mind if I borrow that statement one day. I'll have to give you credit.
Please.
The
I'm
why,
like, I don't even know what I said,
it
Victoria.
was powerful. The why changing, right? And it will continue to change and it might be different, right? Or be viewed a little different or expanded, right? I just, that was really powerful the way you said that.
Thank you. Thank you. And then your other question was about, group practice. So why group practice? And, honestly, Victoria, it's again that why has even changed recently, but initially it was I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a nurse practitioner, and we were just talk who also has her own practice, and we were talking about how when you go out into business on your own as an individual practitioner, you've basically created a job for yourself. And so meaning that if you don't work, you don't
Mhm.
eat. There's nothing in between that. If you don't work, you don't eat. And so, the thing that I tell individual practitioners all the time now is like, if you are going to do an individual practice, do a group practice, because then you have the opportunity to not only create a job for yourself, but to create, a business for yourself, to create some generational wealth for your family, big on creation of generational wealth. And then going back to what you were saying a minute ago, like there's just so much more change you can impact when it's not just you and your
Mhm.
clients, when it's you and your clients, when it's you, your clients, and your therapist clients, when it's your therapist clients, your clients, and you, and the practice owner that you are working with. And so just again, that why has changed over time, but to me it makes great business sense. If you're going to be in business as a practice owner, you need to be in group practice.
Yeah, no, I love that because, like you said, that creating generational wealth that is so powerful. I've heard it in different ways, and just myself, that was really powerful to hear. I came out of a family background that did not have a lot of financial wealth, and
Yeah.
breaking that cycle moving forward and for my kids and the future, right?
Yeah.
And I love talking about business ownership, and so that's exciting, right? To see share your wealth of knowledge on how to help other people's generate that generational wealth, right? That's powerful.
Yes, I love that. Generate the generational wealth.
Yeah, GG, right? GGW.
Yeah.
Love it. So tell me a little bit about how you individually help people. Like, what is some of your niche, or what things do you work with? And then, how does your practice overall? Is there like a, hey, we specialize? I know you mentioned like BIPOC, but also like anxiety, or we have a trauma informed lens. Or tell me a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, also good question. And so for me, I like to say that while I am clinically competent, I think I'm more of an expert on people. And what that means is I know how to connect. Like I know how to build rapport. I know how to relate to people. And just thinking about like if you were a client of mine, that would probably be the thing that you would, note most. Not that my clinical skills are not what they need to be, but certainly it's my ability to relate to people and to just get to people where they really are. Um, as a practice, I think that we all do that as well. We all use a lot of gratitude, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of acceptance, a lot of acknowledgement of just hurt and pain. We all are big on teaching people how to feel. We live in a world where, feeling has been kind of negated to some extent. Like we're socialized to believe that there is no value in feeling. And so I think we're big on teaching people how to feel. We have a number of different specialties within the practice. We have a practitioner that is a DBT expert. We have someone that does EMDR and brain spotting. We have, multiple clinicians that do trauma work, and we're kind of all across the board as it relates to anxiety and depression. Not as many severely persistently mentally ill clients that we're working with, so not as much of the schizophrenia or the schizo
GID.
yeah,
Mm,
the associative identity, not so much that, but we do see a few clients and we're open to them. We
sure.
just don't see as many. And then we do individual work, we do couples, we do group, we do family, we do a little bit of everything. We do even some organizational support. We've had a few organizations that we've worked with around supporting their team related to grief or conflict within the workplace as well.
That's awesome. I'm starting to see, you talked about like that paradigm shift here. I'm starting to see more in the United States. Definitely not here. It's not there yet, but more companies reaching out to mental health providers for consultations on sending, creating a mental health lens in the
Yeah,
workplace.
yes,
Right?
absolutely.
Or like you said, bringing in therapists for something. I remember I was contacted for a company to do, a grief, 4 or 5 hour grief for, someone who had passed away, right? And just, I was like, wow, that's powerful to be for companies to recognize we need someone to come in and help our staff in whatever theme. So I think that's awesome that you guys are having that avenue and making that accessible, and companies will continue to reach out.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It is, I think more and more common since COVID. I think that there has just been this shift in the way that we as a society value our mental health, and so it's a good thing, 100% a good thing.
Yeah, that is so awesome. So tell me, what are some, I know you did talk a little bit about like anxiety and depression. So what are in general, what are common mental health problems that you guys treat, and how might it appear in people's lives? Maybe
Mhm.
one or two things that you can attest to.
Yeah, and so, like you said, anxiety, depression, and it just kind of depends on the population that we're dealing with. We work with children and adolescents. We work with everybody, but with children and adolescents, we're seeing a lot of that again post COVID, where the social anxiety is a big thing. Just, kind of being able to get back in there and not feel so overwhelmed with
Mm,
the shift from being in person to virtual to in person. So we're seeing that we are, I think, as well, the result perhaps of COVID. And I kind of go back and forth with this. I'm 46 years old. I love my 46 years. And I say that I'm at the age of awareness. And so to me, it almost seems like there's a lot of people dying, but then I wonder if it's just that my awareness is, more sharp at this age. But we deal with a lot of trauma, just all across the board. And so I would say a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of grief and trauma, um, a lot of family transition. So have been seeing here lately a lot of families going through divorce and separation and need support around that. I think those are some of our bigger things.
yeah, kind of. I use the word trend loosely. Maybe that's not the right word, but yes, seeing those things. And I wanted to attest to that. I feel like, as the United States shifts more, right, coming out, like that was like the silver lining of COVID. It was, the pandemic was such a hard time for everyone, but like some of the high or things that are really good that come out of is more mental health awareness, right?
Yeah.
And just like you said, like, I work mostly with kids and teens and adult women
Mm.
parents, and something that I was like, huh, you have these kiddos or these families that have some anxiety, and now like the pandemic was like putting your anxiety on steroids,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and then coming out of it, like maybe it was kind of there, and but they were kind of managing it, and then bam, now it's like, oh my gosh, this is in our
Yeah.
face, and we don't know what to do. And so, how amazing and awesome it is for them to be able to get the services that they need so that they can feel better, right? So I
Absolutely.
loved you talking about that. What, if someone were to work with you,
Mhm.
kind of talked about this a little bit. So, but my question was, how does therapy work with you? And if they were, if I were your client, or if somebody was, what would they see? What would treatment be like? And for your organization. And I know you did kind of, I feel like you addressed that. But is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think the thing, and as you were saying that, Victoria, I was thinking that same thing. What would I add to what I would say to that question? Um, so, like all therapists, when someone comes in, this first meeting that you have with them, this is an intake session. We're doing what's called a biopsychosocial. And so the biopsychosocial is we're gathering information about why you're here, who you are, what's your family of origin like, what's the history as it relates to, psychiatric health in yourself and in your family. And one of the things that I say after I ask all my questions and I tell them everything is confidential, I'm not going to tell anybody what you tell me. One of the things that I say to them all the time, Victoria, this is my spiel. You can go ask anybody on the street who's ever been with me. If I say this, I say, I don't do pretty. And what that means is I don't want to have to pussyfoot around. I don't want to have to tiptoe around. I want to be able to say whatever I need to say in this space,
Yes.
safe space. um, I apologize in advance. I'm never, ever, 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 ever going to say anything that is, offensive or disrespectful or harmful. But sometimes directness is because we live in a society where directness is so uncommon. And
Mhm.
so I would say that if there were, one thing that I would add to that, it would be that when you get with me, you're gonna get the real deal. I'm gonna call you out on stuff. You get to call me out. I'm a human. I'm just a human. You get to tell me, no, I was wrong or I'm not feeling that. But I think that's the one thing that I would add for myself. And I would say for myself and the practice in general, we are really, really big on authenticity and disclosure. And I emphasize that because in particular within communities of color, one
Mhm.
that we grow up being told, and I don't know if this is your truth as well, but one of the things that we're growing up, or that we grow up and are told, is, what happens in these four walls stays in these four walls. And what that means is that we don't talk about our problems, we don't talk about our stuff. And so it's that we use as a collective practice the skill of disclosure. So I'm going to let you see who I am as a person. I'm going to let you know that I got, can I cuss?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
I'm gonna let you know I got shit too,
Yes,
so that you know that it's okay for you to show up. It's okay for you to be yourself. It's okay for you to be broken and undone. Me too. Me
yes,
too.
we're gonna ugly cry in here.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
okay.
Yes. If you come in here and you tell me something that is heavy, I'm probably gonna cry, because like that's what
Mhm.
people do when they feel things. And I'm not gonna take it out of here with me when you put it down and take it to my family. And so, one of the big things that I would say that I promote within the practice is you get to be your whole self. You get to show up and you get to be Victoria, whoever Victoria is, and you don't have to make any apologies about it or make any exceptions to it. You get to show up and be your whole self. And I think that that would be one of the things as a practice that I kind of push.
The culture of being as authentic as possible. I love that. I
Yes.
was, I was while you were talking, I was pre-nodding because I knew it was coming when you said that. I don't know if you have a shared experience or your culture, but yes, 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 yes. All, I knew it was coming. All those things of, in Latino community, saying like, nope, what happens in that, stays here. We ain't talking about nothing. You better not tell nobody. You know,
Yeah.
and also just when serving Latino clients, like we want to know, like, hey, we don't know who you are. We need you to give us something too. I want
Yes.
to know about you. What do you
Yes.
like to eat? I want to know, like, you
Yes.
know, anything that you're willing to give me so that I can feel disarmed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's super. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also I loved when you said that. Oh gosh, like I'm gonna cry too, and just being so real because I think sometimes like the westernized um non-BIPOC teaching is
Yeah.
we got to be this way like them TV therapists, right?
Yeah.
Not all of them are like that. It's getting better, I feel like, but where I'm just gonna sit and nod and not gonna say anything, and I'm like, no, we're gonna do the hard shit in here,
That's it. That's
whatever
it.
you gotta say, let it fly,
That's it.
let it
That's
fly.
it. That's it. No apologies. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that, and I think that hopefully more and more clinicians will come into that, and that we're not robots. And I just wanted to say I love that you talked about the like being human because you're not a robot as a therapist. I tear up with clients all the time,
Yeah.
like, oh, that was some hard shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
And so I think it's big, not only that we're giving our clients permission to do that, but we're also giving ourselves permission as therapists to do that. Like, I don't have to come in here and be all the way buttoned and zipped up. Like,
Mhm.
I'm a real person, and so I think the best way for us to, help people is by allowing them to see that we too are real people having real problems.
Right, we're just as human, right? Like I love that.
Yeah.
So we did talk. We were started putting little plugs about like the BIPOC community, and so I wanted to know on some of the things that you talked about that you treated, or anything that you wanted to share about some stats on common mental health issues that you or your organization treats, and what are some stats, maybe like national or state level for the Black population, or anything that you knowledge on that.
Yeah, yeah. I first let me say I appreciate you for asking this question. I think it is so important that while, we're here having this conversation, we provide some background as to why it is so important. And so I did do some research and I took some statistics from a study that was done back in 2022 by Mental Health in America. They surveyed about 2.6 million people, and some of the things that they found that were for me kind of like wow, like, and we see this living out loud. There was from 2019 to 2020, May 2020, there was an increase in suicidal ideation among African Americans. And so with everybody an increase, absolutely. But with African Americans, there was a 6.89% increase. And we saw that, recently with the suicidal death of Twitch, who
Mm,
was on the Ellen show. We saw that last year with Miss America.
yeah.
Like we've seen it played out a lot. And so statistics do back that up, that there was this increase with that. Another thing that we saw, that is prevalent along all racial and ethnic groups, was an increase in loneliness and isolation. And so I wanted to highlight that one because I don't know if anybody has ever done a YouTube search on loneliness, but if you go to YouTube and you do a search on loneliness, almost all the videos have millions or hundreds of thousands of views. And
Wow.
so, for me, loneliness and isolation are one of those silent epidemics.
Mhm.
It's one of the things that, like, everybody feels and everybody struggles with, but we don't talk a whole lot about it. It's one of the things that we saw, of course, increase with the pandemic. But it is not just, Blacks and African Americans, it's kind of increasing over all ethnic and racial groups. Another statistic that I thought was interesting, which again, it's like, yep, I can see that. Of
Mhm.
all of the people who were interviewed that were African American, most of them said, or 30% of them, sorry, 30% of them said that, one of their top three issues was financial problems. And then one of their other issues, surprising, not so surprising, of course, is still racism. And you would think that in 2023 that we would not be having, the same kind of issues with racism, that we would feel like it wasn't a thing.
Mhm.
But 2023, a lot of African Americans still feel like racism is a big deal. And then just one more statistic, because we do serve a pretty large LGBTQ plus community, with new counseling, is that there were, with this same study, 3.9 million individuals who identify as LGBTQIA plus that are living with mental illness. And so that was significant for me as well.
Yeah, that really stood out. Yeah, these numbers were, I mean, when you talk about the suicide rate, like just that was kind of like a, yep, I can, but like some of these other numbers, that number, they were like, wow, astonishing, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to say too, when you talked about the racism, that like struck with me because about how, you would think, right, in 2023, that the concern would be it going down, that it'd be getting better. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I've, because I speak Spanish, I do serve a lot of Spanish speaking families who their children may be English speaking, but the parents don't speak English, right? And, I've got kiddos that are like, I don't like to go to school, or I have social anxiety because I'm being told to go back to my country,
Right.
or I'm being called these names, and I'm being, in the Latino community.
Mm.
And, a personal, I'm gonna be real personal here. It was like, whoa, I had to take care of myself when I hear those things, because gosh, I'm 38. So 20, when I was in 6 years old up through like 12, I lived in a community that's what I got all every day.
Mhm.
And to be like, wow, here we are all these years later, and this shit is still going on. And
Yeah.
it is a mental health crisis, racism, the trauma from
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
huge. And it's not, let's stick our, strap our boots up, or what's that phrase? And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
No, we're being re-traumatized all the
Yeah.
time by this stuff.
Yeah.
And it needs to be addressed on a mental health level, and obviously in a societal level. But I love that you brought that statistic up, and it's still concerning, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. Um, but yeah, thank you for sharing those stats. So I have about a couple more, maybe two or three more questions to go. And I wanted to know, one of my things I wanted to focus on when highlighting Black therapists is I wanted to hear from you guys to give tips for non-Black therapists who are serving Black population, what they can do, right? So when they're working with Black populations, what are some tips or strategies or cultural considerations, things to be mindful of, anything?
So it's interesting, like, and I hope I can say this freely and easily, but of course, before we did the interview, Victoria gave me the questions, and I'm looking at the questions, and I'm always kind of like, what question am I gonna turn on Victoria? What question am I gonna turn on the interviewer? And this was my question because, as another person of color working with a community who I think honestly has a lot of similarities just in terms of the way we were socialized and the way that we move and our experience in this country. Like, I'm curious to hear, like, what are some of your tips for working within the Latino community? What I'll say for me with working with African Americans, or persons in the African American community is, be yourself. Like, we are big bullshit detectors. And so if you come in here acting like, I'm gonna be able to see it. And so, being able to be yourself, I think, is probably one of the biggest things. And I talked a little bit about authenticity and disclosure. And what we're really talking about is being able to build trust with someone. Like, my belief is if a client doesn't trust you, then you're not going to get anywhere in terms of healing and growth work. And so the way that I nurture trust is I let you see me. I let you know that, yeah, I actually got some stuff happening and I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm not okay. I'm not okay. But I think that that's a big thing with working with within the African American community is, to be yourself. But what about you? What would you say to that same question?
No, I love that. I did do some videos last September during the September 15th through October 15th is National Hispanic Heritage Month. And so I did do some videos, really short ones on that. And some of the stuff that you actually talked about is true to the serving the Latino population, like being authentic, disclosure,
Yeah.
that because there's a lot of, and you may relate to this in the Black community, but maybe or maybe not, you get to tell me, right? But a distrust in professionals in the
Yeah.
medical or the,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
from history of abuse, right? Like, and just the distrust, and I don't know you. I'm not sure, right? And then that cultural component of, hey, in the last interview I did, I talked about, like, in Spanish, we say, que no vas a ver una psicóloga unless you're loca. Like, you're not going to go see a psychologist or therapist unless you're crazy,
Yeah.
And so things like just being authentic, like you said, is true. And also, one other tip that I always like to share about is because I serve a lot of the Latino population that is undocumented,
Hmm.
and you don't know that they're undocumented unless they tell you. And there's obviously a huge amount of fear
Yeah.
around, if I tell you, am I going to get deported? So I always tell Spanish speaking clients, and I say this, and I tell them, hey, I'm not going to make the assumption, and you don't even have to answer this, but I just want you to know that there is no calling, or if you have family that fits this criteria, nobody's calling immigration. And if this doesn't fit you, this information, that's fine too. But I just wanted to let you know that,
Yeah.
or I'll talk about, like, I don't ask for social security numbers on any type of document, whether you're, white, brown, Asian, it doesn't matter. But that lens comes from, because undocumented people are really afraid about that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so that's some tips. And then self-disclosure. Like I said, I think I said that already, but telling, stuff, being a real human, talking and being curious. Like, also therapists who maybe know some Spanish. I like
Mm.
to talk about this, and they're afraid to use any Spanish. I'll tell you what, like, even though I'm Mexican and I speak Spanish, I come across, clients that are from Nicaragua, Salvador, Dominican Republic, and we don't speak the same exact words.
Yeah.
And so they're just happy that if you say anything and you're
Yeah.
trying, and so don't be afraid to try and be curious. Ask them, right? Don't be afraid to ask them about their experience. You
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
those are my little tips. I was like, but I loved what you shared because I think this is going to be really helpful for non-black therapists because I'm always looking, no matter what population I'm serving, like how can I be disarming? What is the best fit for them? How can I be culturally sensitive and curious? You
Yes.
know,
Can I
anything
get
else
one
you wanted to add?
more? Can
Oh,
I
I'm
get
sorry.
one more, Victoria? I think
Yes.
first of all, let me say your what you shared was awesome. You know, I will tell you my confession. There is nowhere else on the planet other than Mexico that I have felt more at home. I used to live in Belize, and so went back and forth to Mexico regularly. But
Wow.
just adding that in. So thank you for saying that about speaking Spanish because I'm always trying to speak Spanish, and I'm like, is this okay? So thank you for that tip. The one thing that I wanted to add to what you said, and you actually said this earlier, was that I think that there has to be some level of awareness of clinicians that what we learned in school was not based on persons of color. That
Right. That's what
they
that
wasn't
Western,
actually talking about me.
yeah,
They were actually not talking about Victoria. And
right.
so when you come into a clinical space, you have to know that like yes, you learned this in a textbook, but like in real life, this might not apply because like Jamila and Victoria Valdez, did I say her last name right?
Yes,
Valdez, they wasn't talking about us.
exactly.
Yeah, and I think that that's huge for clinicians that are non-black and brown to know.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to echo that, like, for an example, like, I had taken like a preliminary, like, online course about the idea of CBT not always being appropriate for black and brown populations
Mm,
or populations not just black and brown but populations or cultures that are collective group thinkers, and how do you modify that lens,
mhm.
or bring that to the table. And it was a very interesting training about our modalities and being intentional of does how does this impact, because it is a westernized modality and they're useful and powerful tools,
Right.
but having that lens of how does this apply to this person, on an individual level but or a systems level, but also from a cultural component, right? um,
Yes.
so I love that. So let's see here. I'm loving doing this with you. Where did we leave
Likewise.
off? Huh?
I said likewise.
Oh, thank you. I like, oh, here's the last few questions we have. So for anyone that comes from a background or family or culture that maybe is not so therapy friendly, right? Or resistant, however we want to phrase that, why should they give therapy a try?
Yeah, I like to tell people that like there is not a place or a time or a person on the planet that the relationship you have with them is 100% about you. And so for me, like everybody needs that. Like everybody should have an experience where you are in a relationship with someone that is
Mm,
100% about you. So if you don't ask me how I'm doing, guess what? It's okay. You don't know nothing about my you don't have to because this is not about me. This is 100% about you. And I think that everybody should have that experience in life. And so I think that that is the biggest thing. And then, number two, I think it is, and you spoke to this a little bit earlier, that there has to be some change in mindset from thinking that only crazy people go to therapists.
mm,
That's a big one in the African American community too. A big stigma is that something must be wrong with me if I'm in therapy. I have been with my therapist, and I do believe all therapists should have therapists. But I have been with my therapist for 5 years, and when I went into therapy, I was not in crisis. Like there was not this big thing happening, not a big shift or change. It was that I knew that I needed to have a safe space to unpack some of the things that were going on in my mind.
mm,
And what better time to do it than when I'm not in crisis? That's another big one for me. Like I tell people, the best time to go into therapy is when you're not in crisis, because then you can really get in and dig in and get some of the hard work done. But I think that those are probably my two biggest things. That there is no other time in life, no other relationship you will ever have that is 100% about you, and just that like just because you do therapy doesn't mean that you're crazy.
I love that. You said so many powerful things. Like I love that this is the time where it's 100% about you. That was
Yeah.
beautiful. Like I felt warm and fuzzy hearing that. I
Yes.
also go to therapy and I was just like, oh, that feels so good. To hear
Yes.
that this is about you and whatever you want to, 100%. And I
Yeah.
also love that you said, Jamila, that oh gosh, what was the other thing you said? Oh, that was really powerful. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it that way.
Mm.
So that really stood out when you said, you know, don't just go when you're in crisis. Like you
Yeah.
want to go when you're not, right? To work on those things. And I haven't thought even to like, hey, and then if crisis does come, you do have tools and skills that you
Yeah.
already been working through, right?
Yes.
So I love that. I love that so much. My last question for you, Jamila, is that what for you does it mean to be black? And that question was an open question. It could be as a black woman, as a black business owner, as a black therapist, as a black, that was an open question to you to just share what that means for you.
Yeah, I looked at that question, and honestly, Victoria, it's probably, one of those questions that of course I've thought about, that I think I'll be thinking about for the rest of my life. What does it mean to be black? Today, it means that, I get to experience a time in history when we're seeing some amazing firsts, like,
Mhm.
first African American president, first African American female vice president, like some amazing, amazing first. And so that's what it means to be black as it relates to history. It means that, I get to be a part of a movement as it relates to mental health where we
Mhm.
are beginning to destigmatize mental health. And there are more of us that are coming into therapy and coming into the practice of therapy, and so being able to be a part of that movement, I think it's huge. It's sad. Um, you know, I was like, I get to spend time in the sun. And like there's so many different things that I can say that it means to me to be black. But um I think I'll stop right there for now.
Yeah, I loved that. Thank you again, Jamila. We are at the end of our interview. I enjoyed this so much, like just beyond much. And what an honor it was to hear from you and to get to know you and to continue our relationship together. And I totally need to come and check out your guys' space. I need to
Yeah,
drive up there, set an appointment, come visit in person,
yeah,
which I totally will do that. The last thing I wanted to say, other than thank you, is that I will have all you guys, now you know where there's this awesome powerhouse of other Black therapists. There, you've got business coaching. There is so much here. All of that information will be in the comment section and attached to the video when the video goes out. So all you people interested in Jamelia and her therapy practice and all the things she's got going on, I will hook you up with all that contact information. So
thank you so
yeah,
much, Victoria, for having me. This has been awesome.
thank you.